Okay, so the time is 7 minutes before 8 o'clock. This is David McConaughey, the town attorney. We're about to move into the fifth executive session item, which is a conference for legal advice regarding the recent departure of Mayor Prohaska. I hereby certify that this entire conversation will be subject to attorney-client privilege and would therefore instruct the town clerk to stop the recording. Just pause it because we're going to do it. We got to come back later.
Recording stopped.
Okay, great. We'll need to turn it back on. All right.
Actually,
you want to go first? Good.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave this meeting here in a moment because I think that I'm going to go through a few things, and I don't think it's appropriate that I'm here after that. So I want to be really clear that I knew that Marti and Meehan were going to California. My understanding was that they were going to go and pitch Chuck on some sort of community nonprofit and help save his legacy. They then were not going, and the next thing I knew, they were in California, very excited because not only was it not nonprofits, but it was a let's make them partners sort of deal. That's basically what I knew. Given that structure and the fact that they knew that for the last, I would say, 3.5 years on a regular basis, people come in my office all the time and say, Paul, how do I buy the ski resort? I'm interested in buying the ski resort. If anyone else is interested in buying the ski resort, let me know. Put me with them. And so my understanding was that they had a legitimate, bona fide opportunity to actually do that. And so over the course of a few days, I did put them in touch with some of those people who had expressed interest. And so that was my role in all of this. And I had asked Marti if she had told you specifically, Scott, if she was out there. And she said, I'm here on my own, and I will talk to them about it later. So I will say that if you guys feel like there's a need for me to lead the organization, then I'm more than happy to have that conversation on the basis of what I just said. I think David's articulation of this executive session is broad enough that I can also say that I know that from pretty good source that Chuck's just going to keep on trying to come after me with whatever. None of it true, but there's just going to continue to be this low hum that's going to go on. And I'm not sure that I'm doing this organization a favor by sticking around. And obviously you can't talk about it tonight, but I will understand completely if you guys feel like I need to leave. So with that, I'm going to remove myself from this discussion and leave you guys.
So I've had many conversations with Scott in the last 48 hours since we first saw the newspaper hit, breaking the story of the trip. And then we got this core request that attached the contract, and that had also been splashed around Facebook. And so one of Scott's questions was, or concerns I should say, is that Exhibit B to the contract says, and if you sign this deal, the buyer essentially, Marti and Meehan, shall cause the two towns to do the following things. Lock in the snowmaking water rights, and there's a list of like 5 things. And so that certainly raises the question of, are you acting individually or are you acting on behalf of the town? And if individually, how can you make that promise? And it's a good question. So we started looking through the ethics code. And then I told Scott, I'm probably too close for this. So if we wanted to do some kind of investigation, fact finding, here's what happened, here's what the ethics code says, was there a violation or not? That probably shouldn't be me because I'm just a little too close to it. And all these people are my friends, and I consider you my friends, or friendly at least, I hope. So anyway, so I actually made a few calls and found someone who might be a candidate to do that, and had some ideas of other candidates. And then we got the resignation letter, which in my mind kind of makes it all moot, because under the ethics code, the remedy is a public censure or removal from office. It's not a fine or a criminal charge. I mean, there are criminal ethics things, but none of that's implicated here because this deal was never consummated. So I mean, even if there was some suggestion that Marti or Meehan might have financially benefited personally, well, they didn't because the deal never happened. So, I don't see it triggering the criminal side of the guidelines. But does it violate the ethical guidelines? I'm not prepared to opine on that right now because I don't know all the facts. But Marti did mention, in her resignation letter, maybe there will be an investigation, and I don't want to put the town and the citizens through that, and that's part of why I resigned. So now it's out there in the world that was considered, and the Denver Post called during this meeting saying, is the town going to do an investigation or not? Because we want to conclude that in our story that we're running tomorrow. And we told them there's been no decision on that. There will be an executive session, but there's not going to be any, announcement about that tonight.
The other thing out in the public is that in the last few hours, Telluride issued a release saying that they're going to have a special meeting, I think on Tuesday, to determine whether an investigation into Meehan is warranted.
And I did talk to Kevin. That's what I called Kevin yesterday. I just said, let's just keep it open mind here, because what I really want to see is, a headline on the paper that says, town of Telluride finds violation, while Mountain Village finds the opposite, or vice versa. Let's at least try to be consistent.
Before Marti resigned, we were exploring whether we could do a joint investigation.
Yeah, but here's the reason why I'm trying to talk at it. I mean, one is we got this core request about this. I think it's pretty clear Telski is contemplating some sort of lawsuit, and I'm just afraid that if we generate a document, maybe we're just, because I don't know what it's going to find, but it might, provide fodder that could be used against the town. And in my mind, the fact that Marti resigned kind of makes it moot because the remedies are gone now. There's, you can't censure her or kick her out of office because she left. So what's the point other than maybe providing some transparency to the citizens? I think there's certainly value in that. But yeah, so that's right.
I think there are two types of investigations, and after Marti resigned, we started talking about a narrower type. The original we were considering was that we would try to get to the bottom of exactly what happened, who called them out there, like step by step, who did what when, so we would have a full painting of what happened and an assessment of whether there was any violation of town rules, and also an assessment of whether any other parts of the town, anybody else on this council, Paul, anybody else was involved. After Marti resigned, it seemed like it was not worth the effort to try to figure out what happened. First of all, because Marti's not here anymore, and second of all, because Marti doesn't have to cooperate, and neither does Chuck. So we're probably going to face, limited information. It doesn't make any sense to determine if there was an ethics violation because David said she's gone. So the only question remaining was, did we want an investigation to say, was anybody else in the town involved? Which we just heard there actually was.
Sorry, just a question. Did I misheard Paul? He said he knew about it, but I don't know what.
He said he knew about it, and he said he connected them with investors. Right. Which, doesn't strike me as a fireable offense, but I don't know,
I mean, sorry, maybe I'm digressing, but I mean, knowing about it, I'm inferring that she called and told him she was going. I don't know what knowing about it means. You know, I suspect he wasn't giving her advice on what to do or anything, but who knows? Who knows?
I mean, there was a lot of rumor and conversation around town about people flying to Colorado. Marty and other people.
I mean, flying to California.
Flying to California.
I think it was Marty, Baylor, and Meehan.
I mean, I know that that's what did happen, but what I'm saying is that prior to anybody flying, there was a lot of conversation happening about various people going to California, Chuck flying to Montrose, people trying to set up meetings with different officials, would it be, who it might be, like, so
So I was trying to just pick up on, I thought you were going to saying, do we want an independent investigation that would answer the question of was the town involved?
Correct.
And you said, well, and maybe I'm inferring, you were questioning, well, do we want that or we don't want that? Because now we know that one employee knew something.
Right.
Okay. I'm just trying to follow along.
In the interest of full disclosure, I reached out to Marty, I think it was on the 28th or the 29th. I think it was the 29th, and just texted her and said, do you want to talk? Because we hadn't talked since the strike started. And she called me and said, well, I just so happen to be in California and we're trying to solve this with Chuck. And I said, I'm overjoyed that you're there because hopefully by going straight to the source, you can help resolve this. And I gave her some, some thoughts about strategies that might work. But I was not involved or had no knowledge there was a purchase and sale agreement and all this stuff.
So,
Just in case anybody's wondering, I knew nothing about this. First I learned about this was, I think, the day before the newspaper article broke. Paul called me and said, this is
So,
good.
I mean, my thought process went to, do we want an independent investigation to say the town wasn't involved, which is slightly different from a transparency than each of us individually saying we weren't involved or whatever. And the question is, what's the value of that, third party saying it versus us and whatever. That's where I was going. So
there's nothing wrong with talking to Chuck. There's nothing wrong with offering to buy the ski resort. The problem is only I'm going to get a town entity to do something, which can only be done through the council. So I feel like it's only us.
Yeah.
Michelle can't make something happen as the assistant town manager. Like, we're the only ones who can do it. And if none of us are involved, then there's no teeth behind any of it.
So do we have any exposure if Telluride does an investigation? What if they decide Meehan doesn't resign, they do an investigation, and just talking out loud, if they say, well, Paul was giving them advice on what to do, is that a problem for us?
Well, I think it's a problem because he actually just told us what he did. He didn't tell us that he was giving advice. He told us that he connected them with investors. So I think if it comes out through their investigation that that's what happened, and then I think we have a problem, yeah, because he's being dishonest with us.
Did Telsky do the same for request of Telluride? Or is it
Well,
just
I asked Kevin that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. It didn't sound like it was identical. They got
it was
a
something.
similar request, but I think that ours went further because it said, Dan, tell us every time you talk about condemning us, since,
I mean, I have a problem with this. I'm not seeing a groundswell of people in the town of Mountain Village clamoring for an investigation. I think we put a bow on this. And if Telluride does one and another shoe drops, we'll have to cross that bridge. But I think, to Aleen's point, we're the only ones who could actually make something happen. And we all know we didn't do anything. To Harvey's point, like, what's the real benefit? And to David's point, it could actually backfire because we could get stuff that then would be discoverable in a lawsuit, and it could hurt us.
So this is more political than it is anything. If Meehan stays on their council and Marty and our council asked Marty to take a leave of absence and in turn she resigned, does it look bad at Telluride? Does it look bad at Mountain Village? Is that a negative or a positive?
Right in the eye of the beholder. I mean, I think we were trying to be as fair as possible with Marty. We were saying we want to get to the bottom of this and we want you to accuse yourself without any loss of pay or benefits or anything while the investigation's going on. I can't think of anything more fair or appropriate.
It's pretty common
What?
when, some senior official or senior leader has steps in a pile of shit that they separate themselves from the business and an investigation's done. I mean, it's very,
Yeah, and to give credit where credit's due, I think the very first mention of why don't we do an investigation came from Pete. Because I think,
well, one thing I asked Kevin Geiger was, just based purely on reading the Facebook comments, like he and I both felt it was pretty likely some citizen was going to file an ethics complaint and then there'd have to be some investigation anyway. But now that's moot for us. And someone still might file something, but I don't know what the remedy would be.
the drift I'm hearing is there's not enough upside for a narrow investigation because there are too many unknowns and what do you get from an investigation that says we also I'm just processing, so I'm just thinking about it.
I mean, I'd like to just address what Scott said with respect to Paul. I mean, Paul, I think, directly works for Marty. Marty asked him, can you provide me a list of the investors you know about? I'm struggling a little bit as to what ethics violation Paul got himself into.
I honestly don't see it.
Yeah. And as far as knowing that she was going to California, I mean, is it his job to, if she tells him I'm going to California, is it his job to then call all of us and say, oh, by the way, Marty just told me?
But a lot of people knew they were going to
Oh, yeah,
California. It was like
right.
all over town.
Teddy announced it at the
At the time of the
Foundation.
meeting.
Right.
Oh,
That's smart.
in front of everyone and said this will be resolved in 48 hours.
I mean, but to this point, like I was having brunch and Ron Allred was sitting next to us and he doesn't know me and I didn't talk to him. But like my other Telluride folks who were there at other tables were like, well, Ron's here to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't even know what that means because I don't know where Chuck is. I don't know where anybody is. Who's he talking to?
No, I'm just agreeing with Pete. I haven't heard anything that Paul stepped over a line. That's what I was trying to say. Because I wouldn't imagine that he felt that it was his ethical duty to call all of us or something. When she says I'm going to California.
Yeah, okay. And I think the fishing expedition that this quarter request is hoping to find is that they were like, okay, we can get the water rates fixed if this goes through. All the things that they committed to undertake, that I think they're hoping to find something where we were all like, yeah, we could do that if this goes through. And that, of course, never happened. They never had any basis for making those commitments.
I mean, if anything, like, we should go back to our original plan, which was, this is the water rate, pay the bill.
Well, actually,
they keep,
He was trying to
they
negotiate a
won't
deal.
negotiate with us. That's what's going to happen.
He was trying to get things out of a fake deal.
Okay.
Well, I think he was trying, I think he personally got what he wanted. I think this was all orchestrated by him to set her up, and she ended up resigning. And, you know, so he partially got what he wanted. I think if Paul ends up being a casualty in this, then he got two things he wanted. But I did talk to Paul today about where are we on the water rights, and basically what we talked about is we should go forward with passing a resolution to implement the new rates. And I support that.
If they don't want to negotiate, we have a basis for it, and I'm sure they'll sue us, and I'm sure they'll throw this whole mess into the lawsuit, but that doesn't change anything.
Is everybody aware that their chief counsel is gone?
What?
Yeah, Marty Whitmore, who was negotiating that agreement with us, is
No longer with them.
I mean, you could have predicted this. As soon as anybody on his team starts getting along with people, he fires them.
Right. Or starts like actually coming up with reasonable.
Oh yeah, there's a reasonable solution, then they're axed.
Well, let's stay on topic. So, what I'm hearing is, I'm not hearing any appetite by anyone to do an investigation. We should probably make some statement about that, because then the post is calling and asking, and I think the answer is there's, the council has taken no action to direct any investigation at this point.
The issue of an investigation now with the mayor's resignation, we don't believe that.
What you said is like the resolution of an investigation.
I'm,
The remedy is there.
I mean, they're going to volunteer and do an investigation. I think the answer is there's been no direction to do that at this
I don't want anyone to read our statement about why we're not doing an investigation just because, yeah, we knew she was guilty, but she resigned, so we don't need an investigation. I don't want that to be
Yeah, that's a good one.
how they read it.
Yeah.
So I'm nervous about saying, we could have investigated, we could have nailed her, but she resigned, whatever. I don't have the words, I just want to think about, I think we can just say, we reviewed the situation and determined that an investigation was not warranted or something. I'm worried about saying we didn't do it because the remedy was.
Oh, no, say that. That's okay. No, so are they going to do an investigation? No.
No.
Well, or with the mayor's resignation, the council no longer felt that an investigation was merited, would have any benefit.
But we have to say no longer because we never said it.
Well, it was in her thing.
It was in her letter. That's the only reason it's out there.
Her letter.
Yeah, she said I want to avoid that. So,
And maybe we can wrap in, there was no benefit for tax, for the taxpayers or something like that, kind of thing.
I mean, I do generally feel that in Telluride, they're under much more scrutiny as elected officials. There's a lot more contention, and our community is generally okay. I mean, I've been reading some comments where people feel like Marty did something very wrong, but it's not like the whole pitchfork situation like it feels like in Telluride.
That's what I'm repeating, but I don't want our statement to imply in any way, guilt or something like that, because I don't think that's fair.
yeah, we'll get with Catherine on that, but it's going to be 1 second. It's, at most.
I mean, the reality is, any investigation was really just going to find out really what happened. I don't think we were searching for, guilt or something. We were just trying to find out what happened. If we went down that path.
I was searching for it. I have a strong view about it, being stronger than probably anybody here, but I don't think it was beyond the pale.
Let's be careful about our statement saying not doing an investigation. That doesn't imply anything.
Imply that there's anything there. Yeah.
And we could even spin it the other way. It was like, we all know the council had no involvement, so we don't need an investigation to prove what we already know.
Yeah, I don't want to open that door. All right, anyone have any other comments, questions? All right, let's turn the table.
Questions, but not just.
I mean, I think we should. Who's the woman who is on Facebook and is constantly harassing Paul about his dowry?
Oh,
Susan.
Susan.
I think we should be prepared for Sue's to start saying, I know you said the council had nothing to do with it, but what about Paul?
She's a nut.
What?
She's a nut.
I mean, if somebody files agreements, I think it's a process, right?
Yeah.
That's,
I mean, people literally say to her, like, don't you have something better to do with your time?
Can we?
The answer's no.
Can we just get a little more guidance on like moving forward out of this room, because it's going to be very difficult for those of us who interact with lots and lots of people every day.
Right.
So-
messaging.
You need what to say?
well, everything said here is confidential, of course. So, I mean, I think we want to control the narrative. That's why we have Catherine. But when you're asked, I mean, what's the question that you're afraid of?
Well, what happened? Why aren't you guys doing anything?
The mayor resigned.
She resigned, yeah.
I feel that was the most that would have ever happened would be that we would have asked the mayor to, we're not presuming guilt or innocence, but the most that could have happened was that we would have asked the mayor to step down. And she stepped down on her own. So there's, in terms of, we'll never know what happened every minute of every day when she was in California, but in terms of the impact on our council and what we need to do about it, we feel like her resignation basically closed the door on us. And there's no profit to us, there's no benefit to us, we think, or the community in, spending tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in investigation to find out, precisely what happened that we can't learn from reading the newspaper. That's all said.
I'm not sure people to you.
No, honestly, if you
No,
need
for
some
the
general language, Catherine could probably put something together. We
Yeah,
could probably work on.
I mean,
some
it's very common in situations like this that you have an FAQ, frequently asked questions, and it's like, here's, now the problem with that is it's discoverable.
Yeah.
So maybe, what are other questions?
How do you? What do we already get? How will the council ensure that this doesn't happen in the future? What steps are we taking?
Sorry.
No, go.
The answer is we can't because it wasn't a council activity.
Yeah, she was acting as a private
It was
citizen,
outside.
so-
So there's nothing we can do as a council to prevent a single individual from acting on their own.
Yeah, we have an ethics code.
Can we strive to live up to?
Hey, Scott, I need to run. I gotta go to the pharmacy before it closes at 10.
All right, Pete, thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
I think we're done, yeah?
I think we're done.
Yeah.
Okay, turn back on the tape, and then you.
We never, we went longer than 6 hours.
Recording in progress.
All right, the time is now 8:22. This is Town Attorney David McConaughey. We've concluded the executive session, attorney-client privilege portion, and I certify that entire discussion on item E was attorney-client privilege. That we will return to the regular meeting.
I move to
Check, vote.
Adjourn.
I got it. Yeah.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
I'm not.